There was no warning. Not the kind you read about in those glossy magazine stories or those watered-down internet posts with predictable turns. There wasn't a slow crumble. No months of growing coldness. No emotional distance that snuck in like fog. What happened to me didn't unfold. It detonated. She called me at 3:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's the first thing I remember, the exact time. I was in a meeting, glanced at the caller ID, saw her name, and instinctively declined. 2 minutes later, a text. Call me. Now.
No emoji.
No kiss at the end. Just 2 words and a period that felt like a bullet casing. I stepped out, called back. She answered on the first ring, breathless like she'd been running, or screaming or laughing. But when she spoke, her voice was flat, almost bored. She said, "You should probably come home." I asked why. She said, "We need to talk. It's urgent." Then she hung up. I didn't even bother going back inside. I drove straight home. Half an hour of highway and red lights and my stomach twisting tighter every mile. The kind of twisting where your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. I got to the house and saw her car out front. But the weird thing, her trunk was open and half empty, a suitcase on the ground, another one leaning against the garage door. My first thought was that someone died. My second thought was that she was leaving. But then the front door opened and she walked out. Cool, calm, dressed like she was headed to brunch. Not a breakdown. Sunglasses on. Lipstick perfect. She didn't say hi. She didn't even pretend to act like she'd been crying. She just tilted her head at me and said, "Do you remember that prenup my parents made you sign?" Not a hello. Not even a goddamn question about how my day was. I stood there, keys in hand, heart in my throat. "Yeah," I said slowly, because I hadn't thought about that dusty piece of paper in 7 years. "Well, turns out it was a really, really smart idea," she said. And then she smiled. Not kindly, not nervously, but like she'd already played out this entire scene in her head and was just waiting for the credits to roll. "I hit the jackpot," she said. 9 million. I cashed the ticket this morning. There was a pause after that. Not because I didn't understand, but because my brain refused to believe it. Like she just told me she bought a giraffe or joined a cult. "I don't." "What are you? What do you mean jackpot?" She sighed, like I was an idiot, and pulled a folded paper from her bag. A photocopy of the winning ticket, I guessed. 9 million. Lump sum payout. Already transferred to a private account. That's when I felt the room start to spin, only we were outside, in our driveway, in front of our neighbors' windows. Everything just felt wrong. Too bright. Too normal. The world hadn't stopped, but mine was unrecognizable. "You're not serious," I said, and my voice cracked. "You bought a ticket and didn't even tell me?" "I didn't need to tell you," she snapped. "It was mine. My money. I bought it. With my card. Not joint. I checked." She was prepared for this, like a prosecutor laying out her case. "And I already filed for divorce this morning. You'll get the papers soon." I just stared at her, and she stared back, cool as a glacier. "That's not how this works," I said quietly. "That's not how marriage works." She laughed once, sharp and short, like she'd heard something funny on the radio. "Chris, I've been waiting to be done with this for 2 years. I just couldn't afford to be. Now I can. So I am. 2 years. Those words hit harder than the money. 2 years. While I was paying off her student loans, helping her launch her jewelry line, carrying her through unemployment, she was planning her exit. My voice was gone. My hands were shaking. "You can't just, what about the house? Our accounts? The dog?" "I'm keeping the house," she said. "The accounts are already closed. And the dog was never yours." She walked past me then, clipped heels on concrete, reached into the passenger seat of her car, pulled out a manila envelope, and tossed it at my feet. "That's the first batch. There'll be more. You'll get served by Friday." And she got in the car, drove off without another word. But what she didn't remember, what she completely erased in her little fantasy of independence and victory, was that prenup. The one her father, a no-nonsense corporate lawyer, made me sign before the wedding. The one that, in black and white, gave me rights to everything post-marriage, including 50% of any winnings or gains made during our union, regardless of who earned them. She thought it protected her. She forgot it protected me, too. And in that moment, As I stood in the driveway with papers at my feet and silence screaming in my ears, a different kind of clarity bloomed in my chest. Not heartbreak, not confusion, strategy. The first thing I did was laugh. Not a normal laugh. It was ugly, breathless, manic. The kind of laugh that bubbles up when your whole world just turned upside down and you suddenly remember you're not entirely helpless. Because while she was busy plotting her great escape, she apparently forgot that her own father wrote the legal equivalent of a landmine and had me step right onto it. I didn't go inside the house. It didn't feel like mine anymore. I drove straight to the office of the man who helped me sign that prenup. Greg Turner, a shark in a cheap suit with eyes like glass and a smile that belonged in a courtroom. He was surprised to see me, until I laid the situation out on his desk in 3 sentences. My wife just won $9 million in the lottery. She filed for divorce this morning. But I have this. I pulled a copy of the prenup from my glove box. I kept it all these years like a joke. Never thought I'd need it. But something in me, maybe the same something that trusted her less than I wanted to admit, kept it close. He skimmed it. Then he stopped. His eyebrows lifted. "She's screwed," he said, before even looking up. "If the ticket was bought during the marriage, that money's marital property. This prenup doesn't exclude lottery winnings. It includes them." And just like that, I wasn't the man who got left. I was the man holding half the prize. It would have been easier if that was the end of it. Just take what's mine and disappear. But no, she wasn't done. She didn't just want freedom. She wanted control. Power. She wanted to rewrite history and walk away like I was some insignificant phase in her rise to greatness. That weekend, I got the papers. Hand-delivered. A young guy in a wrinkled polo handed them to me like he was giving me a flyer for a pizza joint. No eye contact.
No explanation.
Just a thick envelope stapled tight. She wanted everything. The house. The car. No spousal support. A clean cut. Like I was a nuisance. Not a person she'd shared 7 years and 1,000 secrets with. But here's where it gets good. I didn't respond. Not right away. I waited. Let her stew in silence. Let her believe I was stunned, broken, curled up in some motel bed. And while she was posting cryptic, triumphant nonsense on social media, pictures of champagne, designer bags, some quote about rebirth, I was preparing the first strike. I sent a letter through Greg. 1 page. 1 sentence. In accordance with the prenuptial agreement signed and notarized on March 12, 2018, I am entitled to 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage, including lottery winnings. She called me that night. Her voice was venom. "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't answer right away. I let the silence hang between us like a blade. "You didn't think I'd remember the prenup?" I said finally. "Your dad made me sign it. You were sitting right there, in that leather chair, biting your nails." She hissed something I didn't catch. Then, "You don't deserve a cent. You did nothing. I bought the ticket. I scratched it. It's mine." "But we were married," I said calmly. "And I did plenty. I kept the lights on while you chased every failed dream you could dream. I covered your rent when you moved out for 6 months to find yourself. I paid off your debt. You don't get to cut me out of this like I was some assistant who outlived his usefulness." She hung up. 2 days later, I got another letter, this time from her lawyer. He argued emotional distress, that she'd been manipulated, that the prenup was signed under pressure, that I never truly contributed to the marriage. But it didn't matter. The document was ironclad, her own father's work. I almost felt bad. Almost. The next time she saw me wasn't in court. It was at the same coffee shop we used to go to every Sunday. She was with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, tan. Some idiot with designer stubble and a jacket 2 sizes too small. They were laughing like teenagers. She spotted me, smiled. But when she looked into my eyes, she saw it. I wasn't scared. I wasn't broken. I was patient, calculated. I'd let her build the fire, and I was bringing the gasoline. She thought it would break me. She thought she'd snatch the winnings, cut the cord, and walk away spotless while I vanished into obscurity, licking invisible wounds. But when she saw me standing across from her in that cafe, calm, upright, not just surviving but watching, it rattled her. I saw it in the twitch of her fingers around her cup, the way her laugh suddenly sounded forced. Even the overgroomed Ken doll next to her noticed. He leaned in to whisper something and she waved him off like he was a fly. She got up and came to my table. She didn't sit. "You're embarrassing yourself," she said, eyes flashing. "You think dragging this out makes you look strong? You look pathetic. Bitter." I sipped my coffee. Let the moment breathe. Then I said, "You were better at lying when you had less to lose." She flinched just for a second. But that was enough for me. The balance had shifted. "You don't scare me," she spat. I smiled. "Good. Because I'm not trying to scare you. I'm here to collect what's mine." She left without another word. That same week, her attorney folded on the prenup. Couldn't poke a single hole. But that's when she switched tactics. From offense to sabotage. I started getting strange calls. Random banks checking on loan inquiries I never made. A credit card opened in my name I hadn't touched. My company's HR got an anonymous tip suggesting I was embezzling funds. None of it stuck. But it was all her. I knew it. The timing, the style. It reeked of her need to claw at the walls when the house wasn't falling fast enough. Greg filed a motion to freeze half of the lottery assets pending final settlement. The court approved it. She lost access to $4.5 million overnight. That's when she made her next mistake. She came to my apartment. No warning. Just a pounding on the door one Thursday night, and there she was, wearing a blazer like she'd come from court. No makeup, hair tied back like she was going into battle. Her eyes were wild. Not angry, desperate. "You win," she said, walking past me without permission. "You want half? Fine. Take it. Take the damn money. Just end this." I closed the door behind her. "It's not about the money anymore." She froze, turned. "Then what is it? Revenge? You want to ruin me because I left you? Is that it?" "No," I said. "I want you to admit what you did. I want to hear it from your mouth. You planned this. You used me. You pretended for 2 years." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her whole body shifted, like the mask finally cracked. "You weren't hard to pretend for," she said quietly. And there it was.
Nos cham.
Just the raw truth, like broken glass shoved across a table. "You were safe," she went on. "Predictable. I needed that. But the second I had a way out, I took it. And I don't regret it. Not one bit. I walked to the window, looked out. Then you shouldn't mind the consequences." She laughed, dry, humorless. "You're still the same. So self-righteous. So desperate to be the victim." "Not desperate," I said. "Prepared." That word landed hard. Because I saw something shift behind her eyes again. That flicker of uncertainty. The moment she realized she might have underestimated me. Again. Before she left, she said one last thing. "This isn't over." And she was right. Because what she didn't know was that I'd already met with her father. And he told me something that made every piece of the puzzle fall into place. Her father called me 3 days after our coffee shop encounter. I'd been expecting it, honestly. He was the only person I hadn't heard from during this whole circus. And that silence had weight. This man, Harold, a retired contract attorney with a pension larger than my lifetime income, had never liked me. But he had respected me. Or maybe he just respected the fact that I never once let him intimidate me. Even when he dropped that prenup on the table like a weapon back in 2018 and said, "If you love her, this should be easy." I met him at a steakhouse downtown. The kind of place where the cheapest bottle of wine costs more than a mortgage payment. We didn't order food. Just sat in a dim corner booth under leather and gold. And he got right to it. "She's spiraling," he said.
No greeting.
No small talk. And I'm not bailing her out. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't realize she needed bailing out. "She's moved most of the unfrozen funds into an offshore account," he said. "Tried to borrow against a property she doesn't own outright. She's bleeding money. Trying to stay ahead of you." I stared at him. "Why are you telling me this?" He leaned in, quiet, composed. "Because she's not going to stop. And I'm not going to watch her implode. She's burned through every ounce of support I ever gave her. Financial, emotional, legal. You were the last person who actually gave a damn." I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh or punch the table. "She used me," I said. "Yes, she did," he agreed, like he was stating the weather. "But the difference between you and the rest of us? You can stop her." That hit differently. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. He pulled out a folder. Slim, clean, Inside were documents, bank records, transaction screenshots, wire transfers, proof that she was attempting to hide assets, manipulate balances, and lie in court filings. And the kicker? Evidence she was planning to frame me for harassment. She told her new boyfriend that you were abusive, he said. She's documenting things, texts she's sending herself. Even staged a bruise last week and photographed it. My stomach turned. She's unwell, he added. But not insane, just desperate. And vindictive. I left with the folder. 2 days later, I filed an emergency motion with the court. My lawyer included every piece of evidence. We asked for full asset transparency, immediate forensic accounting, and a court order barring her from transferring another cent. The next time I saw her was in that courtroom. She didn't even look at me at first. Just sat stiffly next to her lawyer, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched like her mouth was a locked vault. She wore all white, like she was on trial for sainthood, not financial fraud. But when the judge brought up the offshore accounts, her posture changed. And when my lawyer presented the photos, the transfers, the emails she never thought anyone would see, her hands trembled. For the first time, I saw something that wasn't venom or arrogance or scripted composure. I saw panic. She tried to speak once, but her lawyer stopped her, whispered something that made her go pale. The hearing ended with an order for a full audit of all her financial activity from the past 6 months. They froze the rest of her winnings, every cent. As we left the building, she caught up to me in the hallway. "You went to my father?" she hissed. "You used him against me?" I turned to her, looked her dead in the eye. "No," I said. "He used himself. I just let him." She looked like she wanted to say more, but nothing came out. Her mouth moved, but no words formed. For the first time in this whole mess, she had no script, no control. She turned and walked away. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her boyfriend. "Hey man," he said awkwardly. I think I made a mistake. She told me a lot of stuff about you, but now I'm seeing things that don't add up. I just thought you should know. She's packing up. She's talking about leaving the country." I didn't answer right away, but in my mind, the endgame was already shifting. Because now it wasn't about her. It was about what she was still hiding. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, those days were long behind me, but because the pieces were rearranging themselves in ways I hadn't prepared for. Her boyfriend calling me? That wasn't just betrayal. That was collapse. Her carefully crafted world, made of silence, lies, and illusions, was cracking at every edge. And the moment outsiders started noticing, I knew the chaos was only beginning. The next morning, my lawyer called. "She's filed a motion to dismiss the prenup," he said, claiming coercion, emotional distress, and wait, get this, retaliatory behavior during the marriage. "She's saying I bullied her into staying poor for 7 years?" I asked. "Worse," he replied. "She's saying you manipulated her emotionally, so she'd be dependent on your financial structure and fearful of success." I let out a slow breath. "And we have how many years of her Instagram posts bragging about independence and ambition?" 73, he said. "We counted. We filed a counter-motion that same day. But I wasn't interested in court dances anymore. I needed something final, something solid. So I did what she never expected. I met with the boyfriend. His name was Tyler. He worked in real estate, thought she was mysterious, high class, traumatized by a boring marriage. He brought his laptop to the cafe, opened files she'd sent him. Her escape folder, she'd called it. I sat across from him and watched videos she'd recorded. Rambling monologues, clipped statements for a future lawsuit, spreadsheets of her fake expenses, and notes on how to bait Chris into losing his cool. It was all there. But what struck me wasn't how manipulative it all was. It was how empty she sounded. This wasn't a woman building a future. It was a woman fighting ghosts with gasoline. "She told me you hit her," Tyler said finally. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Do I look like someone who needs to?" He didn't answer. I gave him one chance. Testify or walk. Either you help clean this up, or you keep walking and never speak her name again. He agreed. 3 days later, his statement went to the court. His laptop went to the forensics team, and her case fell apart like wet paper. She was served with a fraud accusation, financial misconduct complaint, and a restraining order request, all in the same morning. Her face in that hallway, when she realized who gave me the laptop, was something I'll never forget. Not rage, not heartbreak, betrayal. Not because of me, because Tyler had chosen me over her. Later that week, her father called again. "She's done," he said. "She won't win this. She knows it. What does she want now?" He paused. "She wants to meet. Alone." I laughed once. "She's not stupid. Why now?" "She's desperate," he said. "And she's afraid of what else might come out." I agreed. Not for her, but for me. I needed to look her in the eyes one last time and ask the question that had rotted inside me for months. Why? When I walked into that meeting, I wasn't ready for what she'd look like. Not glamorous. Not cold. Just diminished. Her hair pulled back like she'd given up pretending. Her eyes red. Her hands trembling slightly on the table. She didn't start with apologies. Of course not. She started with a threat. "If you keep going," she said, "I'll burn everything. Even if I lose it all, I'll drag you through it."
I sterte her.
Calm. Steady. "I don't care anymore," I told her. "Not about your threats. Not about your money. I came here for one thing." "Why?" And for once she dropped the act. She leaned forward and whispered, "Because I couldn't stand that you were still good. After everything. After I cheated. After I lied. You were still good. And I hated that." It hit like a brick. But it explained everything. She didn't just want money or freedom. She wanted destruction. Of me. Of the image. Of anything that reminded her she'd become a stranger even to herself. "I'll see you in court," I said and walked away. She didn't follow. The courtroom wasn't packed, but it felt like it. There's something about sitting across from someone who once knew the shape of your dreams. Someone who whispered promises into your hair while you slept, and realizing they're now a weapon. A name on paper trying to erase you. The weight of that doesn't sit in your chest. Coils around your spine. Her legal team came in hard. 4 of them. All sharp suits and robotic confidence, like they were about to dismantle a corporation. Not a man. But it wasn't their tactics that bothered me. It was her. She sat calmly, fingers folded in front of her, wearing that faint smirk that said, "You don't belong here." Like she'd already rewritten the narrative in her mind and was just waiting for the gavel to stamp it. Her opening statement was venom dressed as poetry. She described a marriage of quiet control, financial oppression, psychological coldness. She told the court I had sabotaged her career, mocked her ambition, hidden money. She painted herself as a woman rescued by fate. A sudden windfall that gave her a lifeline away from a life of polite suffocation. And she did it with tears. Real ones. I'd seen her fake cry before. These weren't fake. But they weren't honest either. She was mourning the image of herself she had to kill to survive in this courtroom. The perfect, elegant escape artist. Now she was playing the broken wife, and the jury leaned in like they'd already decided the score. My lawyer stood, calm, sharp. He didn't argue feelings. He presented facts, screenshots of her emails, financial statements, Tyler's sworn testimony, the forensic trail of her moving money to a bank in the Caymans under her cousin's name. The judge interrupted twice, asking for clarification. Not because she didn't understand, but because she couldn't believe it was real. Then Greg played the audio clip. It was her, in a voice memo sent to Tyler, saying, "He'll fight for it. He's too proud not to. But I'll bury him before I give him a cent." The silence in that courtroom was something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I felt nothing. Not triumph. Not rage. Just finality. When she realized what was happening, when the walls closed in, she lost it. She stood, yelled, screamed at the judge, said the system was rigged, that I was manipulating everyone, that her father had turned into a traitor. Security approached. Her lawyer tried to calm her, but it was too late. In 10 minutes, she undid every year of careful image building. The court froze all remaining assets. She was ordered to produce every account in her name and to submit to an independent psychiatric evaluation before final judgment. As we walked out of the building, Greg turned to me and said, "We won." But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like standing in the wreckage of a house I built with my bare hands, looking at the ashes, and knowing that even though I didn't start the fire, I lit a few matches along the way. At home, I sat alone. No victory toast. No relief. Just quiet. Then the doorbell rang. Package on the step. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. On our wedding day, torn in half. I didn't touch the photo for a full hour. It sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded weapon. Two halves of a lie I used to call my life, severed at the spine. Her side was perfect. Makeup flawless, eyes wide. Her smile the exact one she'd weaponized for years. Mine looked honest, hopeful, foolish in retrospect, but real. I ran my fingers over the tear. It was deliberate, clean, like she'd done it with a blade. But the envelope, that was the part that caught my attention. Plain, cream-colored, handwritten note inside. You'll understand soon. Understand what? I didn't sleep that night. Just sat there. The picture on the table. The envelope open like a threat that hadn't finished delivering itself. Something didn't sit right. Not with the photo. Not with the trial. Not even with her breakdown in court. There was something else. Something buried. The next morning, I drove to her father's house. He answered in a bathrobe, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. His face told me everything. I wasn't the first one to knock. She sent you the photo, he said. I didn't speak. She sent one to me too. But mine wasn't torn. What's going on? He stepped aside, motioned for me to enter. I followed him to the study. Dark with shelves, dim light, and stacks of old documents still untouched since the divorce first exploded. He poured himself a whiskey, even though it wasn't noon. Then he handed me a folder. She took something, he said, back when the prenup was written. Inside the folder were emails, contracts, a clause I'd never seen before, handwritten, inserted into the draft copy but mysteriously absent from the final. Dated 3 weeks before the wedding. It detailed something that had been removed without my knowledge. A clause her father had intended to include, that any funds gifted or won would only remain marital property if she did not attempt concealment or commit fraud during the marriage. In short, if she cheated or tried to hide money, the winnings defaulted to me. All of them. But somehow the clause had vanished before signing. Rewritten. Sanitized. I looked up. Did she delete this? He nodded once, slowly. She found it. Knew what it meant. Took the early draft from my safe. Left the cleaned version. You signed what we had. She's been planning this longer than I thought. No, he said. She's been planning something else. That night, Tyler called again. She's gone, he said. She left this morning. Packed a single bag. Her phone's off. Gone. As in disappeared. No credit card activity. No phone ping.
No airline booking.
Just vanished. I called Greg. He filed an emergency request to track any movement of the remaining frozen accounts. We pulled surveillance from her condo garage. One camera, blurry, caught her loading a rental car with a large duffel bag. She wore a wig, a scarf. Not running but hiding. But hiding from what? That's when I checked my email and found something I didn't expect. A message. No sender address. No subject. Inside, a single attachment. Video file. I clicked play, and there she was, sitting in front of a camera, unsmiling. If you're watching this, she said, it means I'm done running. She took a breath. There's something you don't know. Something that changes everything. The screen went black. I played the video 5 times. Each time it ended the same way. Her eyes locked on the lens, words half-spoken, breath caught mid-confession. But she never said what it was.
No explanation.
No file attached. Just that one haunting sentence. There's something you don't know. Something that changes everything. It wasn't just cryptic, it was a trigger. She knew me. Knew I wouldn't sleep until I figured it out. And that's what it was meant to do. Lure me deeper. But into what? I sent the video to Greg. He brought in a digital forensics guy. They checked metadata, timestamps, even server routes. The file was uploaded from a secure IP in Seattle, 2 states over. She was definitely on the move. But why drop a breadcrumb if she wanted to disappear? The audit came back 3 days later. The results detonated what little was left of her credibility. She had forged documents, faked signatures. She'd even opened a trust in my name and moved $800,000 into it, trying to make it look like I was hiding assets during the marriage. If the audit hadn't caught it, I would have looked like the criminal. Greg's team filed a motion for full control over the winnings. Based on the fraud, concealment, and breach of spousal trust, we had every legal right to seize what was left. We'd win. Everyone knew it. But I wasn't thinking about the money anymore. I was thinking about the tape. What could possibly be so heavy, so dangerous, that she'd leave it behind like a final confession? I called her father again. He didn't pick up. Instead, his assistant called me back and said he'd taken a short leave to handle a private family matter, which was rich, considering he hadn't used the word family without spitting it out since the trial started. I started digging. Her cousin, the one whose name was tied to the Cayman account, she'd vanished too. Her boutique downtown? Closed. Phone disconnected. Her landlord said she paid rent 5 months in advance, then never came back. This wasn't just a financial escape. She was scrubbing her life. That's when Tyler sent me a screenshot, a message she'd sent him months ago, during the first week of their fling, back when she still thought he was another puppet to manipulate. If this works, I'll be free of everything. Even the part 1 haven't told anyone. She didn't mean the money. She meant something else. I flew to Seattle. I tracked the IP to a co-working space downtown. One of those anonymous, subscription-based office hubs where nobody knows your name. I posed as a potential renter, talked to the front desk girl, played dumb, showed her the video's timestamp. She checked the logs. There it was, a single entry, a room booked under a false name, but the security photo on file? It was her. Wig off. Eyes swollen. She looked scared. Not calculated. Not cruel. Scared. And she'd left something behind. A key. No label.
No tag.
Just a single silver key taped to the back of the chair. Like she wanted it to be found. I took it. At a locksmith's office 2 hours later, I got the answer. It belonged to a safety deposit box, registered under a pseudonym. But the signature? Hers. It was located in a bank downtown, under the name of someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Her mother, who died 3 years ago. I drove to the bank with my chest tight and hands cold. You don't walk into a safety deposit box under a dead woman's name without knowing you're about to witness something final. Something ugly. The kind of truth that doesn't just live in facts. It drips, rots, and stains every version of reality you thought you knew. I gave the manager the key, and he led me to a dim room at the back. He didn't ask questions. They never do. Just slid the box onto the table and stepped out. The lock clicked open like it had been waiting for me. Inside was a single brown envelope. Nothing else. I opened it carefully.
No theatrics.
Just steady fingers and the thrum of blood in my ears. The first thing I saw was a letter. Handwritten.
No greeting.
Just, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't fix what I broke. The writing was messy, rushed. I recognized it instantly, hers.
No curves, no flourishes.
Just raw ink and jagged emotion. She went on. She talked about the money, about how she thought it would save her. I believed if I could erase everything tied to you, I could rewrite myself. But the further I ran, the more I became the thing I hated. She admitted everything. The cheating, the lies, the manipulations, the offshore accounts, even the video. That was never for court. That was for you. I needed you to hear it from me, even if I couldn't say it out loud. But then came the part that shifted everything off its axis. She wrote about a man named Richard, someone she'd met 2 years into our marriage. Not just a fling, someone who promised her freedom, promised her he'd handle things, someone who knew how to scrub money, forge documents, rewrite tax trails. She used him, and he used her right back. Because Richard wasn't just a con man. He was connected. The kind of connected that doesn't get traced through bank accounts, but through silence. She wrote, I thought I was in control, but I was a pawn. When I tried to cut ties, he made it clear. Either I finish what I started or he finishes me. That's why she ran. Not from me. From him. And that's what the $800,000 planted in my name was his idea. To discredit me. To ruin any legal claim I had. And if I pushed too hard, he'd have enough leverage to blackmail her into silence forever. The last line of the letter said, this wasn't just about divorce. This was about survival. And if I vanish, it's not because I don't care. It's because I lost. Under the letter was a USB. encrypted, labeled only with a single word, insurance. I took it to Greg that night. We opened it on a secured laptop. Inside were dozens of folders, records of her communications with Richard, voice notes,
hidden camera footage,
email dumps, logs of money laundering chains, and buried deep, one file labeled, in case he kills me, a full confession, a roadmap of their scheme, her role, his threats, names of fake corporations, dead account holders, a silent trail of everything they did to manipulate the system and me. Greg sat back in his chair and said, "This isn't just divorce court anymore. This is federal." We handed everything over to authorities the next day. And suddenly it wasn't about her anymore. It was about them, and the people they hurt along the way. But something still didn't sit right, because for all her lies and twisted games, she left this behind. For me, which meant one thing. She knew she wasn't coming back. The FBI took the USB within hours. No red tape.
no delay.
By the time the sun set that same day, agents were already building a case. Several cases, actually. Richard wasn't a ghost anymore. He was a man with a real name, a dozen aliases, and a trail of fraud that stretched across 5 states and 3 countries. Her boyfriend wasn't just a mistake. He was the center of an entire web of financial destruction, and she had been a willing spider until she realized she was the fly. A week later, they found him. But not her. She was gone. Completely.
No traces. No sightings.
Not even a credit card ping. It was like she'd disappeared into a black hole. The authorities thought she'd fled the country. Maybe with help. Maybe alone. Maybe she'd changed her name, her face, her life. Maybe she was in a place where $9 million means nothing, but freedom still buys silence. But me, I don't think she ran. I think she knew the walls were closing, and she did the only decent thing left in her. She delivered the wreckage to the one person she hadn't completely destroyed yet. I was awarded everything in the divorce. Every cent that hadn't been burned or laundered. The house, the cars, the joint assets, the frozen accounts. All of it. I never celebrated. I didn't want any of it. It all felt like blood money. Not just hers, mine too. Because I ignored the signs. I let her sell me the illusion for too long. And when she twisted the knife, I sharpened it by trying to win instead of walk away. I put most of the money into a foundation. Helps people get out of financial abuse. Teaches them to see the signs earlier. To understand that sometimes, love isn't just blind. It's complicit. Tyler moved out of state. Said he couldn't deal with being the guy who dated the villain in someone else's story. I didn't blame him. He was used. Same as me. Same as everyone. Her father never spoke to me again. Not out of anger, but shame. He told Greg in a brief call, "She was the best of us once. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. And me? I still live in the same house. But every room feels like a memory someone else lived. The kitchen, where she toasted our victory with a cheap mug and a fake smile. The bedroom, where she once whispered plans she never meant to keep. The driveway, where she told me the lottery had saved her from me. There's a new frame on the hallway wall. It holds that torn wedding photo. Not as a tribute, not as a wound, just a reminder that love, when it's real, builds. And when it's a lie, it steals. If you're reading this and you're still in the middle of your storm, don't wait for lightning to strike. Don't let someone convince you that you're lucky to be tolerated. Read the signs. Save yourself. And never forget, the truth doesn't knock. It breaks the door down.